You've had this feeling before. You walk out of a conversation and replay it in your head for hours. Did I sound stupid? Did they notice my hands shaking? Did that joke land wrong? Meanwhile, the other person walked away and forgot about you in about 4 minutes. Here's the strange part. You know this. If a friend told you they'd been replaying an awkward moment for hours, you'd tell them nobody remembers, nobody cares, let it go, and you'd be right. But you can't apply that same clarity to yourself. You can see straight through everyone else's insecurities. Your own stay invisible to you. There's a name for this blind spot, and once you understand it, you'll never look at yourself the same way again. So why does this happen? Why are we sharp, almost expert level, at reading other people, but completely blind when it comes to reading ourselves? Psychologists call this a metacognitive blind spot. It means your mind is bad at thinking about its own thinking. You can spot when a friend is being defensive. You can tell when a coworker is overcompensating. But turn that same lens on yourself, and the picture goes fuzzy. Researcher David Dunning studied this for decades. His conclusion was simple and a little unsettling. The people most affected by a blind spot are usually the last to know they have one. Not because they're careless, because the blind spot hides itself. But here's where it gets interesting. This isn't just about intelligence or skill. It runs much deeper, all the way down to how you built your sense of self in the first place. Back in 1902, a sociologist named Charles Cooley proposed something called the looking glass self. His idea was that you don't actually see yourself directly. You see a reflection of yourself, built from how you imagine other people see you. It happens in 3 quick steps. First, you imagine how you appear to someone. Then you imagine what they think of that appearance. Then you feel proud or ashamed based on that imagined judgment. Notice something. Every step here is imagined. None of it requires the other person to actually think anything at all. Think about a job interview. You walk in projecting confidence, but you're not just performing, you're monitoring. The interviewer glances at their watch, and suddenly your internal self-image shifts. You start believing you're failing, even though the glance might mean nothing more than they're tracking time for their next meeting. Your identity, in that moment, is being built entirely out of guesswork. Now something surprising happens. This mirror effect has gotten a serious upgrade in the last decade. Researchers have started calling it the digital mirror. Studies show that a significant portion of people use emojis specifically to shape how they're perceived online. Not to express emotion, but to manage an image. People maintain entirely different versions of themselves across different apps. One polished for a professional platform, one curated for friends, one performative for strangers. Teenagers are the most vulnerable to this because they're using likes and comments as a scoreboard for their own worth. At the exact age their identity is still being formed. The mirror isn't just in other people's eyes anymore. It's in a notification. There's another layer to this, and it might be the most misunderstood psychological finding of the last 30 years. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, and almost everyone gets it wrong. Most people think it means unskilled people believe they're geniuses. That's not actually what the research found. The real finding is called a dual burden. When you lack a certain skill, you also lack the exact mental tool required to notice that you lack it. In the original study, people in the bottom quartile for logic and humor scored around the 12th percentile in actual ability. But when asked to rank themselves, they guessed they were around the 62nd percentile. They didn't think they were better than experts. They just had no accurate way to measure the gap. What most people don't realize is that this same blindness extends into how we judge our own character, especially when things go wrong. There's a well-known pattern in psychology called the self-serving bias. You take credit for your wins and blame outside forces for your losses. You got the promotion because you worked hard. You didn't get it because the manager was biased. But researchers found something that breaks this pattern completely, and it only happens in one place: close relationships. In a study by Siddiquides and colleagues, strangers were paired up and given a short creative task, then told they either succeeded or failed, using fake results. Strangers behaved exactly as expected. They took credit for success and blamed their partner for failure. But pairs who had built real closeness through a structured bonding exercise reacted completely differently. When they failed, they shared the blame. Some even took on more responsibility than their partner did. Closeness, it turns out, works like a kind of psychological leash. It stops your self-image from drifting too far into self-protection. This changes everything about how we think about the gap between self-perception and reality. Because here's the twist. We're actually very good at predicting how situations affect other people. We're just terrible at applying that same logic to ourselves. In one study, students predicted that people in a group would be less likely to help a stranger who dropped something compared to someone standing alone. They were almost exactly right, but when asked to predict their own behavior, they said they'd help regardless of being in a group. In another study, people correctly predicted that a bad mood would make their peers less generous with charity. Then they insisted their own generosity would stay the same, no matter their mood. We treat other people as products of their situation. We treat ourselves as fixed, unshakable characters, immune to circumstance. There's one more experiment worth sitting with. Researchers told students that a cloak of anonymity would be introduced during a self-marked quiz. No names, no accountability, no way to get caught. Students predicted, correctly, that their classmates would take advantage of that anonymity and cheat. But when asked about their own behavior under the exact same conditions, they insisted their own integrity would hold firm. Same rules, same temptation, same anonymity. They just couldn't imagine themselves being affected by it the way everyone else clearly would be. This isn't just an interesting quirk. In high-stakes professions, it becomes dangerous. Pilots and doctors who feel overly confident during the planning stage of a task tend to skip precautions because their gut tells them nothing will go wrong. The irony is that the same overconfidence, once the task actually begins, can sometimes function as fuel, pushing performance upward. The danger isn't confidence itself. It's confidence arriving at the wrong stage, at the moment when preparation still matters most. And this pattern shows up more in some people than others. Research suggests men tend to display this overconfidence more strongly than women, not because of greater skill, but because of higher expectations of success and a stronger baseline sense of self-esteem. The blind spot isn't distributed equally, but it touches almost everyone in some form. Stop for a second and think about what all of this actually means about your own daily life. Every time you've assumed you'd be the exception, the one person immune to peer pressure, immune to a bad mood, immune to the pull of anonymity, you were running on the exact same illusion as everyone in these studies. It's not a character flaw. It's not a sign that you're unusually self-absorbed. It's just what a human mind does by default when it's asked to evaluate itself instead of someone else. So what do you actually do with all of this? You can't switch off the looking glass self. You can't force your brain to suddenly see its own blind spots. But you can borrow a method that already works, the same one that neutralizes the self-serving bias inside close relationships. Get closer to people who will tell you the truth, not people who flatter you, not people who simply confirm what you already believe. People who are close enough and honest enough to share both the credit and the blame with you. Because the real realization here isn't that you're broken or uniquely self-deceived in some strange way. It's that every human runs on the same flawed operating system. You are not uniquely blind. You are simply human, using a mind that was never built to see itself clearly, only built to see everyone else. If this changed the way you think about yourself, even a little, that's the whole point. Sit with it for a second before you scroll away.